Hi, my name is Natasha Wright, and you are tuned in to Event Gems, where I will discuss all things event related and take a deep dive into creating concepts, marketing, and execution for your next biz event. My goal is to bring you industry experts who can help you properly monetize and effectively strategize so that you can make your business shine.
So, welcome everyone. My name is Natasha Wright, and you are tuned into Event Gems.
My guest today is
Celest Dunn. Celeste is an event strategist, serial entrepreneur, and the owner of the Gray Management Firm and 1744 Intuitive Culinary. So I was excited to have her on today because I met her at the Black Business Expo at the Urban League. And one of the things that I do before attending an event, my strategy is I check out who the speakers are and follow them on social media, see what their background is, and see if there's any synergy before attending the event, so I can talk to them, figure out a way for us to collaborate in some way. And so when I saw Celeste's background, I was like, she would be perfect to be a guest on Event Gems. And so I'm so honored and excited that she's here with me today. So can everyone please welcome Miss Celeste Dunn.
Hello,
Thank you for being here. Yes. So just give you a little bit of background. So I told you a bit about her, but she has been an entrepreneur for 18 years and has worked on strategic projects with clients from and brands such as Disney, Ciroc, Hilton Hotels, all like heavy hitting corporate clients. And so one of the things that I really wanted to have her talk about is, how can small business owners really be global and think like corporations or think like corporate entities in order to market our events, products, use events to market our products and services, right? So one of the things that I read in your bio is that you will have the ability to hack the content, right?
Sure.
So I wanted to explore that a little bit more and understand, like, what does hacking the content mean in terms of planning an event? Because we've heard about content is king from a social media perspective, how we need that to market our businesses and our services and our products and so on. But when I hear hack the content, I'm even more interested, and I want to get the juice on what that means and how we can utilize that, in our events as we go forward as small business owners.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Natasha. Just want to say it's a pleasure to be here. Excited to share with you, excited to share with your listeners and viewers. I think we're going to get into some great stuff this show, so I'm excited. As far as hacking content, so it's terminology that I started to use about 5 or 6 years ago. Tech, of course, has risen significantly, and we always hear about hacking. Hacking was where basically there was something that you might not have been able to have access to and gained access to it through a strategic move or an insightful idea or in some cases legal matter. But more than anything, it was the ability to gain access to something that you did not normally have access to. So about content, especially in the age of social media, produce content in large quantity. But that doesn't mean that all the content, whether it's social media or at an event content, it doesn't mean that it all lands where it's supposed to land.
Yeah, absolutely.
In order for that to increase, in order for you to increase the ability for your content to land in that specific target market, to land on that specific viewer or audience member, to land that particular potential customer, find a strategy that I use within my firm and with my clients about hacking content. So a client comes to me with a specific brand, a product, or an event. They'll tell me exactly what they want to do. And then my job then is to dig in, to kind of find a way to take what they're bringing to me and specifically craft it, hack it, so that it lands where it needs to land with that viewer, with that attendee, with that potential customer. Does that make sense? So it's not raw content and pushing it on an audience. And I think with events, because events are, it's a buzzword and a lot of people do, they push raw content to people without being strategically hack into the content to make sure that it lands and resonates with that audience, with that target market, or with that potential customer. So for me, it's a signature for my event process when I'm working with clients. It's a signature within my company, and it's something that my clients come to me for because they come in raw material. It's kind of where the name The Gray comes from. It's a gray space. It's a big idea. It's a new product, and we're trying to figure out how to narrow it down, how to curate it so that it lands specifically where we want, so that people are consuming our material or our content in the way that we desire. In order to do that, you have to dig in. You have to find a specific lane, a specific methodology for taking that content, breaking it open, unpacking it if you have to, or compiling it in a way. Sometimes you condense it, sometimes you expand it specific to whoever your target market is. So that's in a nutshell what hacking content has to do. It works with social media, it works with events, it works with speaking. You can layer that pretty much on any type of content you're trying to express or trying to put out, but it is key with events, because again, a lot of people have great ideas, you have great momentum, great motivation, even a great product, but you push it out in a way that is very large, and not large in an expansive way, but large, more bulk, and people digest in small portions. That's going to create those sales you want. That's going to create that relationship you want. When I can digest a piece of it and make it mine, that you have to take that content, hack it down, if you will, get inside it, find a specific way to intuitively introduce something unique in that content to your viewer or to your audience.
That's fantastic. I love that. I've never heard content being explained in that way before, but it's really juicy, and I'm sure that, we can all learn from that. Because essentially what you're saying is, don't just like push out the content. You have to also think about different people's learning styles as well, and how people consume information. So for example, if you're doing a technology conference or a medical conference, for example, I think that a lot of times when people go to some of these industry events, it's a lot of jargon that is thrown at you. If you're not, in depth into that field or that industry, you don't really understand it and you don't really get it. So it's like, how can you cater to the audience's learning style so that, they can intuitively get the information, but also for that information to resonate with them so that it can resonate with the brand or the product or the service or whatever it is that you're offering. So I love that. So I wanted to just go unpack a little bit. You said land, right? Land with the audience, or land with the attendees. Can you talk about that a little bit more, and what does that mean in terms of the content or the information that people are sharing at events, and how can we maximize how that content lands on them?
Absolutely. So when I think about landing, again, I use it all the time. So I think about an airplane. Again, when an airplane is preparing to either ascend or descend, there's a specific amount of procedures that pilots and even flight attendants that go through procedure to make sure, it's called landing procedure, to make sure that landing is not only safe, but it was expedited, and it was done in the proper way. Content, messaging, and branding, very similar analogy. Okay. A lot of people have product, events, or even messaging, but there's no landing procedure. Procedure for how to product, service, idea, movement in a position that it landed with that audience member or with that potential client. So when I say it, I mean, it's a situation when you land in an airplane, you feel what? Secure,
right?
You feel safe. You definitely have a sense of excitement because you're glad that it happened the way it was supposed to happen. All of those same things should happen when you're introducing product, brand, or marketing to a potential new audience. If a person is walking away confused, is walking away without understanding, a person not feeling secure, then that product, service, or messaging has not landed properly with that consumer or with that potential consumer. So that's the difference a lot of times between a sale and a non-sale, because it land with that particular audience properly. Well, you see, with marketing and branding and messaging, I use another analogy or example with like the Super Bowl. Oh, people pay millions of dollars for those commercial spots. All brands, alcohol to sports, paraphernalia to food, everything, right? But of all the commercials that happen during the Super Bowl, there are typically maybe 3, maybe 4 that land perfectly with the audience.
Absolutely.
Talking about them the next day. It's
absolutely
not great, and they spend millions of dollars, and they will likely convert as well and be productive for that brand. But there's those 4 that really landed across the board, and everyone is talking about it. That is what I mean by landing. Even if you're not an alcohol drinker,
right?
Budweiser, because something about it procedurally landed right with you to the point where maybe it was comedy, maybe it was their color pattern, maybe it was just, it landed perfectly with you enough for you to remember the content, whether or not you consume the product. 9 times out of 10, you would think twice about consuming that product. You may want to consume it now because it landed just right with you. So that's what I think about when I speak about landing. When you take a product, or brand, or message, or an event, and why I think, and I always encourage, and I'll drop this out there, event gems. That's why I know, and I always encourage event producers or people who have the events to get feedback after the event.
Right.
That's the only way you can truly tell how your event landed on the audience. Okay, so you've gotten them in the building, they purchased a ticket or have chosen to attend, but once they got there, did you convert?
Right.
Your message or your brand or your product land with them.
Absolutely.
Surveys, feedback, follow-up emails, thank yous. This is the way you find out specifically what landed and didn't, what you will do again, and maybe some opportunities for improvement. So landing is very specific to the methodology, process of getting that brand, that message, that event style to your specific audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you shared about surveys, because me and my partner, we do a style and beauty expo every year. And that's one of the things that we feel like is critical to our growth and really understanding what our attendees really need. And we pivoted throughout the years based on the feedback that we received. And, sometimes it's not even about content. It could be about, what the location. Right, exactly.
Like all the line, how long it took for them to get into the space, the lighting, maybe audio visual. Like I love the product and I love the speaker lineup, but it was hear it in this space. So seeing some of the presentation, like we know this is a product we love to consume, but I went to the presentation because of AV. So, and things where when you're an event producer, next time I need to, and I do this with my staff, we make sure, again, I tell other event producers that I work with or I mentor, when you're in a space, you need to stand in at least minimum. We do more in my company, but a minimum.
Right.
Put yourself in at least 5 spaces, your primary event space. Look at your presentation.
Could you repeat that one more time? You said for how long?
So if you're an event producer, or you're leading an event, you're staging an event, you're producing an event, or your team need to position yourself in at least minimum. Now, with my company, we do more, but a minimum of 5 different positions in the room. Position may be sit on the front row and look from your left, and from your left to your right. Sit on the back row, scan from your left to your right. Balcony and scan from your left to your right. Go behind stage, scan from your left to the right. Get in 5 different positions throughout the room.
Right.
That is the way you will be able to, in some way, experience what your consumers will be experiencing.
Absolutely.
And pick up and correct prior to them getting there issues before. Try the sound from those positions. Try the AV from those positions. Try the PowerPoints, the visuals, the videos from that position. Look around and see whether or not, this table is so close to the kitchen. Every time that kitchen door swings open, it's going to distract these 10 people from what's happening on my stage. So I think I would move this table from being so close to the kitchen door where servers are coming in now. All kind of been somewhere.
Yes. And you're like, no, this is not a pleasant experience for me at all.
It was not pleasant. And it did not mean, again, it did not mean that the content was bad.
Right. But it distracts from it, certainly.
It distracts. So your landing now is very bumpy. Because you're trying to get that message, but it's bumpy because the waiter and the kitchen door and the trays and the plates and jangling. Okay, so you as a producer should catch that.
Yeah.
You really should catch that. If you're in an open air environment outside, specifically, you want to stand in a minimum of 5 different positions and evaluate what your consumers are about to receive.
That is fantastic. Yes, I think that's great. And that also goes down to planning too, right? Because if you're rushed and you're, last minute, then you really don't get that opportunity to have that holistic view of what the attendees might get once they come in. And that shows that you've been an entrepreneur for 18 years. Now, let's just say she's been an entrepreneur. Look how young she is. And she has been an entrepreneur for 18 years. Congratulations. Congratulations. It's an amazing accomplishment. And I know that the Gray Management Firm is actually your second business. Talk to us about what your previous business was. Sure. And how did you know when to pivot, and why did you pivot? Because I think a lot of times, especially for the listeners and the viewers out there, you might be a new entrepreneur, or you might be in year 4 or 5. And so, even to think about 18 years later, that might be just as an arduous task for you to even think about, because you're wondering, am I going to make it, right? But you could see from her journey that she has pivoted. She started a new company, and she's still thriving and being successful. So can you talk to us about what your previous business was, and why and when did you decide that it was time for you to pivot?
Sure. So I started, and I always throw this caveat in there. I actually started my first business when I was like 9 years old. So
wow. Okay. So you are,
I say 18, right. I say 18 years in adult entrepreneurship. I'll say that.
Okay, gotcha.
Be a kidpreneur, and I encourage parents to support their children that are entrepreneurs. I'm going to throw that out there. If your children are entrepreneurial, please support them. Again, my parents were entrepreneurs, and they supported me as a child entrepreneur. So that was a foundation for me to start my first adult business, my junior year in college. So in starting that business, the foundation of that business, or the bulk of that business, was event planning. I was very involved in campus activities, very active. Ended up starting an event planning company at that time. So that is when my first business started. It was called the Celestial Design Firm.
I love that name.
Near and dear. Yeah, very near and dear.
So beautiful. Right? Yeah.
Very near and dear to my heart, and taught me so many lessons, not only just starting it, but growing it. So this is pre-Instagram, really the expansion of Facebook. This is even goes to MySpace. I don't want to, tell you.
We've all been there. Right. If you're in your 30s, you know about MySpace.
Okay. So it's pre-modern, more modern social media. A lot of building that business was hitting the ground face to face.
Right.
It was a lot of relationship building. And at that time I was young, but in my mind, I had been an entrepreneur since I was 9. So then I didn't deal with a lot of fear around engaging people around my business. Now, it didn't mean challenges. It didn't mean I wasn't still a minority, African-American, a woman under 30. I mean, I was in my 20s.
Right.
So it was still challenges, but I had that confidence having started businesses and run them, and had the experience as a child. So I started a Celestial Design Firm, and actually one of my first major contracts was with the Hilton. And I always not, because they took a risk by contracting with me. Now I'm in a city where they had options, but because I went in and had done my work as a vendor, so a wedding, lots of weddings. I've probably done over 300 weddings.
Wow, amazing. You deal with the bridezillas, so that means that you have a lot of patience. I can imagine.
I have to be honest. So I have to be so honest. I have blessed. I've had amazing brides. I don't have one bride. I have a half of a bridezilla story, and I don't blame her.
Yeah.
It was a lot of family pressure. I just think she was a little bit stressed out.
Right.
I literally have been so blessed to not have had any crazy bridezillas. And I think, again, I'm going to bring it all back. Have a lot to do with relationship and conveying the message of security to your clients. Of course, yes, some of it is personality, but some of it is just anxiety.
Right, exactly.
Confident in what their provider is doing.
Right.
So if they push into areas where they should be relaxed.
Right. Gotcha. That makes sense.
With other planners, and that's when you're working with corporate clients. You have to be able to convey with assurance, with confidence, with intellect, with data. They can feel confident in what you're going to produce. So
Got you. So that was how you were able to secure that contract with Hilton.
That's how I was able to secure
Fantastic.
with the Hilton and work with them for over 8 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, over 8 years.
You must be really good at what you do. In case you were wondering, she's amazing at what she does. Because for a corporate client to retain you for 8 years, That's phenomenal because they,
For 8
like you said,
years,
they
and
have so many options.
I was in my early 20s. I was
Wow.
early 20s when I first got that contract.
Mm-hmm.
And then as another nod to my appreciation for my work with the Hilton,
Mm-hmm.
particularly was my staff
Mm-hmm.
was also very young.
Wow.
So it took a lot of training. I trained a lot of college students,
Mm-hmm.
really had a passion, but just needed the training. So I
Uh-huh.
trained, and we were able to go in and really set a standard within the hotel that we work in, specifically the Hilton. And
Mm-hmm.
we worked with them successfully for, like I said, about 8 years. And it was a great partnership. I still am very close with several people from that hotel to this day.
Wonderful.
Leverage that relationship into more business over my.
Right.
So it is critical. So I had that business for well over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And about 5 years ago, here's the pivot. So
Mm-hmm.
I moved out of weddings. I was doing a lot of weddings in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Saturated with weddings.
Mm-hmm.
Again, even through the exposure with more clients through the Hilton and some other clients, got more into corporate planning. So
Right.
corporate, working more with brands versus individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Really enjoyed that process. It's different from weddings. And
Right.
I started to transition. So the first transition went from being more so into personal planning. So that's individual parties,
Mm-hmm.
those types of things, to corporate planning.
Right.
Just transition there. Once I got probably 75% corporate, 25% personal,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I built a book of clientele out of that, enjoyed that time. And then about 5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I began to want to pivot again, because in working with corporate clients, I started to learn more and more that even though they hired me to do an event,
Right.
a lot their marketing, the marketing
Right.
were so closely webbed together
Right.
that it's pulling me into marketing and branding very, very strong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
So now
absolutely.
my clients were not just asking me to produce design for events or do logistics for events, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
now hand in hand with their marketing director or with their brand manager to put
Right.
a whole message through an event. That makes sense.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
So this
Matter of fact, I was just going to say that I read a statistic that said like 50% of companies allocate about 20% of their budget to events, like
yes,
their marketing budgets to events.
the
So that's
marketing.
interesting that you bring that up. And that's something that small business owners can also think about as well when they
Sure.
approach their events, for sure.
It's huge. It's a huge thing. And when you get at that level and when you get into those conversations, this is
Mhm.
what you have to understand why that landing, why that communication piece is so important.
Mhm.
Not say it was pretty lights and the linens were right or the DJ,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
did the messaging land with the audience?
Right. Right.
That is what large companies want to know. Did the messaging land with the audience to convert?
Mhm. Mhm.
As an event producer,
Mhm.
as an event planner, that makes
Right.
sense. There's a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
As an event producer, you have to strategically know how to do that. So about 5 years ago, I started doing much more of the producing of events
Mhm.
from that standpoint. And that is when the Celestial design firm actually pivoted and became the Gray. Now,
Nice. Nice.
so I could have separated them and had a specific just event company
Mhm.
designs, and then did more like the marketing and branding production. For me, it felt more natural to just integrate. Because
Right.
many clients who did events who now have grown and now they want to get more into production.
Right. Right.
They want
Yeah.
to start bringing messaging through event production more so than just I had an event. They want to say
Mhm.
produce a series. How can
Mhm.
I produce a tour?
Mhm.
So that's more of a production element. And so therefore the Gray was birthed out of that. So the Gray was essentially in a smaller form or as an infant form, the Celestial design firm. But that was 10 plus years of a lot of experience with brands, with growing staff,
Mhm.
with the business side. So that when I transitioned into the Gray, which
Right.
brings in that marketing and branding component, and I tell people all the time, we
Mhm.
are just face of the brand.
Right. Oh, that's good.
Events are just it's the makeup,
Right.
whatever
Right.
analogy.
Yes.
It's just the face of the brand. People put the face on. Okay, so this is why
Mhm. Yeah.
people are not successful because they
Right.
put the face on and they don't have the content
Mhm.
or the business foundation to support the event.
So essentially, it's almost like you're saying the soul of
Yeah,
the event is not there. Yeah.
it's
And
not
I see that a
there.
lot of times with events. They put it on, and I feel like sometimes it's more so, especially in the South Florida markets, a lot of times it's just about like, okay, well, how can I make money from this? And I think that, what you're talking about is how can you strategically approach events as a
Yes.
marketing strategy for your business? Because these are some of the things that corporate clients or larger brands are actually doing. And that's something that as small business owners, we can also, incorporate or implement within our strategy. So then let's talk about, that's those two worlds, right? So for a lot of small business owners, they don't have the huge budget, that a large corporation or a larger brand would have, right? So how can they still convey the message or have the content land in the same way or provide that same type of experiential content or experience for their client in the same way that you're talking about that you do with corporate clients? How can they convey their message or their brand or sell their products and services through an event in that same way without having a huge budget?
Sure. 2 words.
Okay, nice.
Personal touch.
Okay.
So what large have is money.
Right.
Have the revenue to produce things that will stimulate you in an event setting, whether that's the Megatrons, the lights, the sound,
Right.
the catering that's overflowing, and we love those things. A lot of those,
Absolutely.
right? They help that messaging to land and they help with your event experience. Large, okay, very large. You still feel consumed by it in a good way, but it's large. I
Right.
tell all businesses with the number one mistake that I think small businesses or small brands where we have gone wrong. They try to create these experiential. So they try to create this experience at the event that they financially support. So it's not full. It feels that emptiness that you're talking about.
Got you.
And strategically, the better strategy is to condense what you have in a way that it feels personal. Because you have an advantage that the bigger brands may not have. I work with a lot of big brands, and they're trying to figure out how do we create a personal touch.
Yeah.
You already have that.
Right, exactly.
Leverage what you have. And so sometimes they try to get so big, and I want to have it in this space, and I want to. People get there, and it's like they're running pillar to post. It's not really as organized as it should be. You're so connected to it.
Right.
Brought it down to a size that was more manageable.
Right.
Personal touches. If you're the owner, welcome people at the door versus standing on the stage and the mic. See, that personal touch, people will remember. Look at what the audience is. If your audience population is geared toward a certain age, make sure that music specifically speaks to them.
Right.
That a large event, they know they're going to have 4,000 people. They have to play 70s, 80s, oldies.
Right.
Because there's so many people. As a small event owner, you may be targeting millennials. Make sure the music speaks to them. Make sure your color scheme speaks to them. So there's flexibility you have as a small business owner, but for certain personal touch. Find where without that personal touch does not take a large budget. Now, some people think touch means I have to do individual cupcake person or individual, bags for each person.
Which is more labor intensive that a lot of small businesses aren't even able to do.
It's more expensive.
Right.
I'm not saying don't do those things.
Right.
Do them well, but the way that you create that relationship and start the conversation even internally with someone that's engaging with your event is personal. Create space for personal touch. Like I said, as a business owner, greet them at the door. If you have 50, 75, 100 people, make time for yourself in your schedule. Greet people at the door, even if you're only able to greet 50 of the 75 or 70. Shake their hand, tell them you're happy to be there. If you're having a luncheon, I love to tell my my business owners, my leaders, my founders, yes, we want you to address the people from the stage or from the diocese, from the pulpit, not pulpit, but the stage. But while people are having the meal, move around in the room.
Oh, that's so good.
Don't just talk to the VIP.
Right.
Don't just talk to your sponsors. Go around to the people who are going to be product. Touch bases with a couple tables. Make sure you check and say, how was your meal? I'm so here. I'm so glad that you're with us. Send that follow-up in the end of the evening with your personal signature as the owner, as the host. These things are sometimes overlooked with the larger events, but it's an opportunity for you as a small business. And that's
good.
coming back to your brand to say, I went there, it felt like sisterhood. I went there, it felt like brotherhood. I went there, it felt like a community I want to keep in contact with. I want to consume that product.
Absolutely. And I even when you said, you could walk around and talk to attendees, as they're eating, I thought about like even new restaurants or small, small business, small mom and pop restaurants, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times, like the owners will come out and they'll say, "How was your meal? Hi, I'm the
Yes.
owner. Nice to meet you. Was everything great? Is there anything that, any feedback that you provide?" And I always
Sure.
find that to be such an encouraging way for me to, yes, the food might have been good, but that extra added,
Personal touch.
hospitality makes me want to go back, because
Yes.
like you said, it's that personal touch and you feel more connected, not only to
Yes.
the restaurant and the delicious food or not, but you feel more connected to the owner and invested in their success as well. So you want to go back,
Right.
So I think that that's a great point that you brought up. So you shared some amazing, wonderful information. Thank you so much for that. We're going to wrap it up. I feel like we could talk, for maybe like
Yes.
another 30 minutes and you would just keep dropping gems, right?
Let's go.
Yeah, like you're a wealth of information. I am so happy that we got a chance to connect and that you
Sure.
to be on Event Gems with me today. So just let people know how they could follow you, how they could stay connected with you online.
So the company is The Grey, and it's Grey, because I know you can't spell gray with an A, but mine is Grey. So thegraymanagement.com, graymanagementfirm.com. And also I'm on Instagram. It's at Celest, CELEST, in the city, thegrey.mgt. So our Instagram, and then 1744. So it's Dine, DINE 1744. So those are all three of my handles, my personal handles: Celeste in the City, thegrey.mgt, and then Dine, DINE 1744. So those are all of my handles. Again, love for you to come by the website. Again, The Grey Management. And we're here ready to serve, but love to connect with my small business owners as well as my large brands. And I thank you, Natasha, for this platform. I think this is, please continue to do so, providing this information and this opportunity for small businesses and just people to have information. It's just so critical, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. So what is one last event gem that you haven't shared? Because you shared multiple, but one last event gem that you want to just close out with today?
Okay, I would say this. If you are an event producer or event planner or someone who's hosting or throwing or preparing an event, make sure that you are mission focused.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're mission focused, you'll get the money. And I know that seems trendy or even like a tagline. People don't understand that when you connect with someone through a mission or through a message, their purse becomes open.
Ooh.
So are seeing where the money is not flowing, then that means that the mission or the message is not being conveyed. It's not landing. We're back at landing. It's not the way that it is. So if you're doing event production, event planning, you just have a small event, it's a little tea or it's a 300-person reception, make sure that your mission and message focused. How am I conveying that? And after that, I'm sure the money's going to flow right in.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Celeste, for being here. Thank you all for listening. Please feel free to connect with me at the Diamond Butterfly. Event Gems is everywhere on your podcast platforms. And thank you so much, Celeste. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Good night, everybody.